Finally, we saw some movement in trade week, and guess what? We were at the center of it. Welcome back to Bluebaggers Edge. Always a pleasure to have you joining us. And if you are new around these parts, make sure to give us a like and a subscribe because your support goes a long, long way. And gee, what a day of trading it was. Not only did we strengthen our draft hand come the end of the day, but one of the moves also had ramifications for other deals, believe it or not. So the first move that we did make was a pick swap with Brisbane, exchanging our pick 34 and pick 66 for their future second and pick 73. This gave Brisbane much needed draft points they'd need to bank in order to match bids on the incoming Ashcroft brother. And for us, well, in isolation, this pick swap made little sense, but boy, did it help unlock the next massive move that we made with the Hawks, where we gave them our 2025 future first and future second in exchange for pick 14. Just absolutely incredible. So a little bit of context for that first deal that we made with Brisbane. The reason that we did do it, because under AFL rules, a future first and future second can only be traded if the team is able to also acquire an additional future second round pick, which is where Brisbane's future second comes into the mix. And it did allow us to then trade our own future second and future first to Hawthorn for that pick 14. So, geez, it was an absolutely insane move. Came from nowhere. I remember scrolling Twitter and thinking, okay, what trade updates do we have coming through? And bang, first thing I saw was this second trade. I didn't even realize that we did the first trade. But in quick succession, saw this come up and wow, it makes me think that, Nick Austin is legit playing chess when everyone else is playing checkers. I made a bit of a gag on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it, but such is the piercing blueness of Nick Austin's eyes. I made a gag saying that his eyes can pierce through space and time, and he can already foresee moves that are going to be made without them having been made as yet. So just incredible day of movement from Nick Austin and the recruiting team. Incredible foresight to make the trade with Brisbane and then know that, okay, we've triggered that under AFL rules that we can then trade both of our future first and future second in order to get that pick 14. So as I spoke of at the start, ramifications for this will be felt long and wide. And, pick 14 was actually the centerpiece that was being mooted, obviously, in the Tom Barrass trade between the Eagles and the Hawks. However, the word is that the Eagles, by all reports, were causing a little bit of frustration with the Hawks because they were refusing to deal Barrass for that pick. And the Hawks, I think, in a way, by trading that pick 14 to us, have lit a fire underneath them by instead, giving us the pick and being like, you know what? Well, if you're not going to make moves, we are not going to sit back and just wait for you to decide. So they've been proactive, and you've got to tip the cap to them because it's helped us out in a big, big way. And even by extension, this pick 14 was actually seen as a central part to the Eagles being able to nab Liam Baker off Richmond. And now I guess that move in itself has been put in jeopardy by extension. So interesting times now, and probably off the back of these moves that we've been involved with, especially with the Hawks, it's turned the trade period on its head. It's good to see because I think that the trade period goes for way too long. I think a lot of us think that. But, for deals to be made finally, a few days in with very little movement happening, it's good to see. So it's going to be a flurry virtually, I think, of moves over the, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday period. But geez, what a way to cause some chaos amongst the trade period. Now, where does this leave us in context of, where we stand in terms of the picks that we've traded out and the picks that we've brought in? So now we actually hold our pick 12 original, pick 14, which of course we got from the Hawks, along with pick 69, 72, and 73. So as for 2025, we now no longer hold a future first. So in essence, we've virtually swapped our future second. We've brought in Brisbane's future second, and we've traded our future second to the Hawks, obviously. So that's been a bit of a switch there, and traded our future first, in essence, for Hawthorn's pick 14. So, if we finish fourth or third, it means that we've brought in a pick that's going to be higher than what we'd be getting anyway. So really, I think beautiful trading. And, when you think about it more so, given the strength of this year's draft compared to what's being reported for next year's draft, which is going to be very, very diluted by, again, academy picks, father-sons. There's Mick McGuan's son coming through, who's reportedly a top 3 pick that Collingwood no doubt will just snaffle up under the father-son rules. But by and large, the quality And depth of quality for next year's draft compared to this year, it's very, very shallow. So it runs very, very deep this time around. And to get a pick 14 in this year's draft is just absolutely incredible. So in the grand scheme of things, I guess now we turn our attention to where things stand and what we're going to potentially be doing with these two high first round picks, with the pick 12, pick 14, because I think there are multiple scenarios, obviously, that could play out off the back of this. So we'll detail them and let us know, of course, your thoughts down in the comment section below, which way you think we will go. So the first avenue is obviously taking both of those picks to the draft and targeting. I think, potentially it does open up a move where we target two particular players that fulfill direct needs who, we can hope that they're available around those picks. The first is Luke Traynor, who is arguably the best key position defender in the draft. He's just noted to be a brilliant intercept defender and is even adept at being swung forward if need be. So he is a highly touted prospect, and I'm a little bit worried though, having said that, we hope that he would be available around that pick, but I think given that St Kilda have pick 8 and pick 7, chances are that they are one of the candidates that could nab Traynor before we get a chance to get him, because obviously having lost Josh Battle, he's probably a really good replacement there. There are other clubs though, like there's North Melbourne who could potentially, maybe, depends on if they trade their second pick to get 2 picks in the first round. Could we potentially deal with them? Who knows? But there are a multitude of scenarios and options there that could play out depending on who's got picks before us and whatnot. But if he's available, he would be an absolute godsend. The second option is around about that pick, which I think is probably more likely to happen and slide to one of these 2 picks that we've got, is Joe Berry, who's spoken about as the best small forward in the draft alongside Essendon's academy prospect in Isaac Kako. He kicked an impressive 27 goals from 14 games for the Bushrangers, did Berry, and topped the goal tally for Vic Country with 9. So he's described as an all-rounder with an ability to mark on the lead, apply pressure, and crumb some classy goals. I heard Cal Toomey talk about him, and he said whilst Kako is more of your Stengel type, Joe Berry is more of a Dylan Moore, who can sort of like push up the ground, be more of a marking option, not just so much as a traditional, straightforward, crumbing small forward. So he could be available around about that pick and would be absolutely incredible to get as well. So those two fill 2 much needed positions, as I said, and that in itself has me salivating because it helps rejuvenate our list with some quality youngsters. But as I said, it's a bit of a gamble because we're relying upon other teams not taking them, especially Traynor, who, St Kilda could snap up and would be most worried about. Now, some may be questioning as well, why would we bother investing in the draft? But, keep in mind, as I said, this draft is being spoken about as a potential super draft. So, 2001, as we know, Chris Judd, Luke Ball, Luke Hodge, all those top tier players. And then even, thinking about the quality players that we were able to get in the more recent super draft, which we were very, very lucky to get. A lot of people forget about this. Back in 2015, that draft saw us pick up the likes of Weeders, Charlie, and Harry. That was virtually our spine made up there. But I think, looking at the way that other clubs do it, you do need to, top up the list as it goes instead of just bottoming out. And I think the recruiting team are mindful of that in that strategy that, you have to really make the most of those quality, strong drafts as they come along. And this is definitely one of them. We also need to be mindful of the fact that Tasmania are going to be coming to the competition and compromising not next year's draft, but the one after that before they come into the competition in 2028. So we've really only got next year. That's virtually it. Before virtually we're made to sit back and, Tassie get those massive concessions, which I will detail here as well because I've written them down. So the Gold Coast and the Giants, when they came in, they were nabbing picks 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. They then had the first selection at each round, early access to recruit the best 17-year-olds via a mini draft and then on-trade them, and access to recruit no more than 1 player at each club, so can poach a player. And then, of course, they had a whole heap of academy and rookie concessions as well. So, again, this is probably the last chance where we get an opportunity to get some really, really great quality youngsters in. I think this avenue is one that, I'm on board for. And I think really takes a lot of foresight in planning forward. And, it's a balancing act because we need to plan for now in obviously trying to win a premiership in the short term, but also laying foundations for the future success of the team. And sustained success is the buzzword, and it's for a reason, because there's no use being at the top and almost trying to contend and almost trying to nab a premiership and then falling all the way back down the table. Like we've seen that happen. St Kilda were the prime example that they were very unlucky not to win at least a couple of flags back in the 2010s, and it didn't happen for them. And they fell away starkly because they didn't have the foundations beneath the top tier that were developing that could then step up and come through as that next tier. So, yeah, as I said, I'm pretty happy if the club goes down this route, and I'll back them in, because the move that they've made at the moment was not something that I'd anticipated at all. Took me right by surprise. I'm sure it has with all of you as well. But yeah, great play from Nick Austin, and opens up a whole heap of options. Now, the next scenario is obviously, to do with Dan Houston. So with pick 12, pick 14, obviously those in combination, Port Adelaide would be rubbing their hands together with their hands out saying, yep, give me both of those and we'll give you Dan Houston. Now, that's not going to happen. There is no way that we would, let alone even like a Collingwood, if they were able to, have the picks in our position. At least I don't think they would if they were that stupid. But, this is down the line now where, if we were to trade, say, a pick 12 and keep pick 14 and somehow, I don't know how it would work, but, get Houston in via a pick 12 plus, a later pick or a player or who knows, I would be all for that as well. I think that's a great move. And all along, Nick Austin has said that, we want to take picks of the draft. We want to remain in the, the top echelon of the draft. So it's good to see that he's got his mind on the future, as well as, virtually he's saying, like, we're not going to sell the future for the present in hopes that we can try and steal a flag, because I think their mindset is very similar to mine, where I think, and I've said it time and time again, that Dan Houston is a great player, but I don't think he fulfills a must-have need for us. He's more of a nice-to-have as opposed to a must-have. He's more of like the cherry on top. You've got to be mindful of the fact that, Doherty is going to be coming back next year, fully fit and firing. And, with our midfield, I guess, healthy, hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, with Cherry coming back and so on and so forth, it means the reliance upon Doc to run through the midfield full time. And I guess coming off an ACL as well, they would probably have him more so playing off the half-back with maybe some stints through the middle. So if we're having Doc off half-back again, we've got Saar, we've got Newman, we've got Gov, we've got Weeders, we've got Boyd there. Cowan's another one as well. I think we're well stocked in defence. And the main thing is, I think that kind of annoys me with the way that we play, as you would have seen, and I've spoken about it as well in the match review videos, is that the way that we play the transition footy out of defence is it's way too safe. Like, as you know, kick down the line, 9 out of 10 times and really stunt the growth. And I guess we're not playing to the strengths of the arsenal that we have at our expense. And I'm referring to Adam Sard here, his ability to break lines, his run and carry, all that sort of stuff. Like, we saw that in fleeting moments throughout the season, but the way that we set up, the way that we play, if we were to get Houston into the team, like, he's just going to be stunted as much as what Sard is. So I think a lot of it comes down to, are you targeting a player once they come into your team that, the way that you set up, the way that you play is going to play to the strengths of that player. But having said that, like, that all aside, I think Dan Houston is going to make any side instantly better. But, I think for me, again, with what Port are asking, with 2 first-round picks, he's not worth trading a pick 12 and pick 14 for, because you're selling your future. And even Justin Lepage spoke about it as well. Like, he was on Trade Radio and he was mentioning how, because, Houston hasn't nominated a club yet, it kind of makes things hard for Collingwood, speaking from their perspective. He was saying that they don't even have pick 13, which is what Gold Coast pick is, that they're still trying to target to use that in a bit of a trade. But even then, if they were to table pick 13, pick 20 odd that they've got, and Joe Richards, that's not going to be enough in itself to satisfy Port Adelaide with Houston. I think we've got to remember that Houston still is under contract, and because he hasn't really nominated a team outright, I think, and even from what he said, like, he's to and froed about, wanting to go home, and, he's quite happy to stay in Port Adelaide. I think now the way that things stand, that it's more likely for him to stick around at Port Adelaide as opposed to, coming to us or going to Collingwood. And, I think I'd much prefer to see him stick at Port Adelaide than go to the Pies if we don't get him. So, yeah, that's, I guess, another scenario with regards to Houston that we could do is package up both of those picks and maybe try and get Houston with another high pick back. But I don't think that would be, a potential opportunity for us to do. Now, the third prospect is potentially, and I've alluded to it there, packaging up both of those two picks and getting a higher pick. So it comes down to those teams above us that have, picks that we could try and target if we wanted to go up the draft. Now, one such club that we could potentially try and move up the table with their pick is Essendon's pick 9, but I don't think, a move up of, from pick 12 to pick 9 is really going to be worthwhile doing. And there has been rumours that, prior to this move that we made with Hawthorn, we actually tabled our future first and future second for West Coast pick 3, which would have been incredible if Nick Austin was to do that. But West Coast, by reports, said no, and hence the reason why we then went to Hawthorn and made the move with them. So we could still potentially make this move. We could try and package up pick 12 and pick 14 and maybe something else to try and get West Coast pick 3. Now that would really allow us to, take a pick from the quality crop of youngsters near the top. Finn O'Sullivan, Sam Layla, Harvey Langford and Sid Draper. They're all considered to be taken around about that stage. So who knows, we could potentially be looking down that path. And all those are really, really great midfielders and would really inject us with some youth in the midfield that we'd love to have. But I'm like, in a super draft like this is being spoken about, is it worthwhile sticking with the two picks that we've got and get two, high quality youngsters compared to a top 3 pick where we get, almost a semi, could be potentially a superstar? I don't know, who knows? But, I think if we're able to get two guys that fulfill needs with those two picks that we've got, with pick 12, pick 14, I almost would say from a structural standpoint that it would be more worthwhile compared to going for, a great midfielder, which, our midfield would really benefit for some speed. We know that. But, I think fulfilling two needs with, another tall defender that we need and potentially another small forward, or even do we back in, if we keep Owies, do we then, back ourselves in to select the best midfielder around that point at pick 12 or pick 14? So maybe those are some scenarios to play out. Now, it has been reported on afl.com.au and a few other journos as well, saying that we are one of the clubs that is very keen to get even higher up in the draft, even after these picks that we've been able to exchange for Hawthorn's pick 14. So having pick 12, pick 14 gives us a bit of ammunition to potentially package up and maybe even get a top 5 pick. Who knows? So we'll have to wait and see how things play out there. Now, the last bit of news here is one that's come out today as I record this on Saturday, the 12th of October. And it's from Mitch Cleary, who said Hawthorn's former number 6 pick, Denver Granger Barras, met with Carlton yesterday. Any move would be as a rookie or SSP train-on. So Granger Barras, he is without a contract for 2025 as it stands. Obviously, Hawthorn are well stocked in defence, especially if they get their hands on Tom Barras. And they've obviously got Josh Battle as well. So that would really help us, I guess, in terms of the depth that I've been speaking about with regards to, or lack thereof, with regards to our tall defensive options and adding a little bit of depth that we are a little bit worried that we don't really have much for, and it depends as well. If we were able to get someone else in, doesn't mean that we get rid of, a Sam Durden maybe, or do we keep him as a bit of, backup, break glass in case of emergency type depth. So that's pretty much that. But let us know your thoughts down below. Always keen to hear your thoughts and which way should we go? Should we go to the draft with those two picks? Should we try even to package them up and get an even higher pick to maybe get, one quality youngster in the top 5 range? Or do we try and use maybe one, maybe both of those picks to try and get Dan Houston? As I said, I'm kind of veering towards, not going for Houston because he's not a direct need, especially if it means that it costs us, both of those picks. And just going to the draft. If we're able to get Houston with a pick 12 and then keep pick 14, for example, and go to the draft, it's a bit of an each way bet there. I would actually prefer that in itself. But if that doesn't eventuate, I'd be very, very happy to go to the draft as Nick Austin would, by the sounds of it, with pick 14 and pick 12. But let us know, of course. And if you are new around these parts, as I said, feel free to give us a like and, of course, a subscribe, because every subscriber, it just helps the channel grow, of course. And with YouTube's algorithm, it gives us a little bit more exposure to spread awareness to fellow Bluebaggers out there. But that's it, ladies and gents. Thanks, as always, for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Go Baggers.